I think we're live. I think. I think. Just gonna give it a second to see if notifications go out or whatever. But otherwise, I'll just start and we'll go with it. I've never really done anything quite like this. I did a bunch of research today into the more recent happenings with Bam. I used to follow him a lot when I was young. Uh, Mostly because my cousin is actually friends with him, well, was friends with him. I know in recent years he hasn't really been able to talk to him, and I haven't reached out to my cousin recently about Bam because I don't think if I brought up the subject it would probably be nice. But anyways, so in The Sims, I'm just gonna be building a little vet that I wanted to build in my game, in my save file. So that's mostly just to have something because I don't have a webcam set up and I'm kind of in the process of moving. So it is what it is. And if people wonder if I have mods in my game, yes. I cannot tell you all them, but I know the big one that you'll probably notice is I have better build by, which is basically an essential. So, what's going on with BAM? So, as a lot of people know, I think anybody who's been following what's been going on with BAM for the last decade, more or less, knows BAM's been struggling with addiction and mental health issues. And I don't want to because a lot of people go all the way back to oh, it's because Ryan Dunn passed away. No. BAM had his problems before Ryan, and I think Ryan's passing and how he passed uh, definitely played into it, but I also think that it also speaks to the environment Bam was in and the environment Bam created around himself at the time. And just from my own knowledge firsthand, speaking to family who know him and was friends with him, that's why my family members stopped really speaking to him very much. And I know a lot of people started distancing him themselves when his drinking got worse. So it's sad to see happen because I grew up watching Jackass, and more than that, I grew up watching CKY, uh, which if you only know Bam from Jackass, pretty much the whole first season of Jackass was pieced together little tiny crappy sketches of Johnny Knoxville and Steve-O and all of them, and then CKY. And CKY is what Bam did with Ryan and his brother and all of the Westchester guys. So, anyways, I digress. I'm very nervous, so I might be really, really rambly. In the last couple of years, there's been a lot publicly out there about Bam's struggle with mental health and alcoholism. I think, in my opinion, hi, all right, I appreciate the lurk, I really do. So, all right, in the last couple of years, there's been a lot very publicly out there about Bam and his addictions and his mental health issues. And it's been put out there in, I'm gonna say it, in my opinion, by Bam's family. I don't think Bam per se chose to have the family go on family therapy. I do think that April, in her own way, and I'm not blaming her. I'm not somebody who's gonna place blame on addiction for anyone else than the person who is dealing with the addiction. But I think that his family might have taken advantage of it in the past for attention. Uh, it's kind of suspicious to me right now because Bam's missing, like full on missing. They haven't heard anything from him in almost 3 days. Where he lives is right on the border of Delaware, and there is a pretty decent sized river right there. And I personally am concerned that something has happened to him. I really want to hope against all hope that he is he's being hidden by someone, and that I'd rather him be hidden someplace than out in the frickin' woods, because I live on in this, I'm not gonna say general area, but I live in the same region as him, and it's been pretty cold here the last couple of days, especially at night. And I just think about him being cold and out there, and I don't think he was, I think I read somewhere that he didn't even have like shoes on, and he spoke to JB Investigates or whatever her name is, and I have opinions about that whole situation. And like, I don't want to discount her or say anything bad against her because she is a freaking lawyer and would probably sue me for everything I don't have. She would sue me for everything my Sims have. But uh, she said that Bam doesn't have a cell phone. And even if he did, he didn't take it with him. And from what I've heard and seen being discussed on Twitter, so take that for what it is, it's Twitter, that the fight, or part of the fight, that ended up resulting in Bam getting upset to the point that he made threats against his family members' lives, which to me, that doesn't, like, this speaks. I don't want to say that Bam isn't using, because, like, that would be too optimistic of me, and I'm an addict in recovery, so I should know better. Like, he probably is using, but at the same time, I'm more concerned he's in a legitimate mental health crisis, because I've watched the way he was acting in that interview with JB Investigates. And she said, like, oh, he was fine, he was like lucid and stuff until somebody gave him the cup. And I was like, dude, even in the start of that interview, he didn't really look exactly lucid. And I was thinking about this while I was eating dinner and before I got on here, and it's kind of sad because I don't know if anybody follows King Cobra JFS, but the the trajectory of both Cobes and Bam is almost exactly the same. Different reasons, all of that, but it's the same downward trajectory fueled by alcohol and fueled by the people that are around him. And that includes his family. And as much as I hate to say it, even when your family does have the best intentions, when you're an addict, it can also often be very toxic. And that's just from my own personal experience. Like, when my mom was trying to get me to go into recovery and to get some treatment and stuff that I needed to, like, quote unquote, get my life together, which is almost exactly what April said, which, full disclosure, might be peppering my less than favorable opinion of April at the moment. But there's also the respect that you can't control him, and the more you're going to try and control Bam, the more he's going to push back against it. I do believe that somewhere I remember April saying that he had like ADHD and oppositional defiance disorder. Like, mmm, mmm. Just gonna take a sip of my coffee here for a second and ponder what I'm gonna talk about. All right, that JB Investigates chick. I spent the better part of last night and this morning watching her free BAM content. And I was kind of aware of the free BAM movement, and I don't agree with it out and out, and I don't agree with putting Bam into a conservatorship either. There has to be somewhere in the middle, and I do actually, like, from my own research off of the YouTube, I do find there's some suspect things about this Lima chick. There's just a lot of questions, and I'm probably never gonna get the answers to them because, it's probably none of my business, but there is some shady stuff going on. He went to how many rehabs in, like, he was shuffled from rehab to rehab to rehab, one after the other, right before he would finish up his 90 days. And I get it, like, if he, like, got kicked out or whatever, but there is a lot of this that we don't know. I've watched some of the body cam footage that JB Investigates puts on, and it doesn't paint his family in the most amazing light. And I don't know if perhaps she edited it, if I would love to be able to see the unedited footage if it exists out there. I have yet to find it. The only time I found the body cam footage has been on her YouTube pages. So she, in return, is controlling that narrative in regards to Bam, which it's just like this whole screwed up situation. And I feel the worst for Bam's son because I grew up being the child of an alcoholic, and it's screwed up and it messes your head up and it primes you for addiction later in your own life if you aren't careful. And I feel bad for Bam because he's obviously not well. And I think he is not in of his right. I think it is a combination of addiction. I think it's a combination, what is it? Head injury from all the skateboard stunts, from all the jackass stunts. I think he has some sort of head injury, and I don't know if people are aware he had COVID or pneumonia or something not that long ago, and he suffered 5 seizures and was on the vent for like a week. And when you have a seizure, it messes up your head, like it messes up your brain. And I deal with seizures as well, so like I know that part from firsthand. So if he's, God forbid, had more sense then, and he is dealing with potentially like brain damage, alcoholism, which you can get brain damage from the alcoholism, and then you add in a mental illness, something like, you know, perhaps schizoaffective. I would definitely say he has major depressive disorder. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a professional, but as somebody who lives with major depressive disorder, I would almost bet my socks. Like I'd bet my last freaking bite of ice cream that dude has some serious major depressive disorder for no other reason than his freaking best friend died in a horrific accident. And you can't really talk about this situation with Bam without talking about Ryan. And that's kind of sad. Because, like, Ryan had his own problems. And I do notice when people talk about Ryan Dunn, they don't often talk about the fact that, y'all, he was drinking. Like, he was drunk when he crashed that car. And it's it's tragic. And there's no other way to put it other than the situation is tragic, and that I wish that there was a nicer way to put it. I wish that it wasn't the way that things are, that Ryan's memory isn't completely just attached to that one event and then everything that's happened with his best friend since he's passed. I mean, that's definitely not the legacy that Bam would want. Not Bam, Ryan would want. I'm sorry. I'm very nervous. That's not the legacy Ryan would want. Um, Not that I know Ryan, but I don't think that he would. I mean, we're very close. Our birthdays are very close, and I've always felt very connected. And like, one of my nicknames when I was younger was Random Hero. So like, anyways, telling way too much about myself because I'm nervous, and when I'm nervous, I ramble. But yeah, so Bam. Back to Bam. Let's get back to Bam. Bam and building, right? Bam and building. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. Whew. I'm very nervous. And I'm sorry I keep saying I'm very nervous, but it's just true. I am very nervous right now. So, right now in the state of Pennsylvania, there is a warrant issued for his arrest because he did assault his brother, Jess Margera, who was the drummer of the band CKY, which shares the name of the video series that Bam basically got his start doing, and that eventually became, through cutting and pasting, the first season of Jackass. But also at the same time, I've noticed on Twitter that Jess is basically going off the deep end, appearing, I don't want to say like manic, but he is kind of appearing a little off the rails, and it's understandable given the situation. Like his brother's missing, his brother's in the throes of addictions. I can sympathize. I can get that. But then they're also promoting like his music. They're promoting music. They're just going on in some respects with regular old business. Hi. Hi, Shiva. I'm very nervous and I haven't really gotten much building done, but I'm trying to have a coherent conversation about BAM, even though it's a lot. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this situation with BAM is it's a very nuanced situation that I don't think any of us are ever probably going to get the full story on because quite frankly, I don't think we are entitled to the full story. I don't think there isn't any reason that we should know the finer details of what transpired as much as we would love to know it. Like would I love to know why for sure Bam, clocked his brother and made threats against his parents. Particularly Phil because like in all of this Bam has always been like he loves Phil. Phil's his like I think of his parents, he's closer with Phil. Yeah, there are no easy answers in real life, and there's no closure, and there's probably not going to be closure, unfortunately. I don't think that this is going to end well for Bam, and I hate saying it, and I really do hate saying it like that because he he was such like when he was healthy and when he wasn't as deep into his alcoholism, my interaction with Bam like 20 20 years ago, yeah, 20 years ago, was one of the best interactions I've ever had. Like, he was my hero. I skateboarded, like, I was all into and my cousin was into that world. And, I got a phone call from Bam for Christmas. And it's a happy memory. Like, he took his time out to, like, do that. And that proves to me, like, regardless of anything else, like, he did a favor for his friend during the holidays just to make a goofy kid he's never met smile, Like, it's not like Bam's a bad dude, which makes this whole situation so much harder. I think if Bam was more of a jackass, for lack of a better way of putting it, it'd almost be easier to be more angry with him. Because I have a difficult time, again, because I can put myself in his shoes. I I have a difficult time being like super pissed off at him. Like I can understand why he ran. I can understand why he got defensive and, you know, fought his brother. Like I can get it. I'm not saying I support it in any way, shape, or form because I don't. But when you're in the throes of addiction, like it's a whole different story. It's a whole different bag of potatoes, man. And you can try and try and try to get somebody clean, and it's not going to do anything until they want to do something themselves. And it's such a trite thing to say, but it's absolutely true. I never use this. I should use this because you know, I think in the interview, because I watched the interview Bam did with Steve-O today, and it's a really good interview. If I don't necessarily agree with Steve-O's complete philosophy on recovery, I I don't. I don't think that I don't think it's a one size fits all situation for people when it comes to recovery. Different people need different things. That's all I'm going to leave it at that. But the interview itself was really good, and it was only 8 months ago, and it kind of like gave me hope. Like, oh, and then I realized where we're at now with Bam, and it's just like, buddy, you could have like really turned things around. And it's so sad because he's got this gorgeous little boy. Hello, welcome. Haven't really much besides me rambling about Bam. It's super individualized, and Bam might mean something completely different than Stevo. And I don't think that necessarily Stevo would agree with that because I think like well, I got sober this way. Good for you. Like that's gonna sound so condescending of me, but it's like good for you. That might not be it. Like there are some people it takes so many attempts. It took me personally, it took me 4 attempts to get sober. And it was the one attempt that I did end up succeeding on was the one that I made the choice to do it. It wasn't my family members telling me I had to do it. It wasn't, I was running out of money. It wasn't all these other things. I was just tired of it. And I think because he has money and because his family is like profiting, I hate to say it, his family is profiting off of it. They've appeared on Dr. Phil. They've appeared on Family Therapy. They've, had various reality TV show appearances using Bam's addiction. So you can't tell me that's not exploiting a vulnerable person. Because absolutely that's exploiting a vulnerable person. I don't care if he's an adult, you're still exploiting a man who is in the throes of active addiction, who is not mentally well, and who has never fully grieved or recovered from the loss of Ryan Dunn. May he rest in peace, man. And Bam is like, I watched the video again today, and it's hard for me to watch that video of Bam at the crash site 11 years ago. And I think people aren't taking that into account either. It's been 11, almost 12 years since Brian Dunn died. That's a long time. Bam's had a family. Can't That has to mess with his head. And then what is he gonna do? What he always does when he's not happy, he's gonna go to the bottle, be it prescription or alcohol. And I adore him too. I adore him so much. I love it. Like, he's such a sweetheart. Like, and that's the thing, like, through all of this, he's still a sweetheart. He's still that same charismatic person that could suck you in and get you to be like laughing about the stupidest things. If it wasn't for him, I would have never jumped in a shopping cart and made my friend push me across the parking lot and try and crash into each other. Oh, yeah, unresolved grief. Oh, I went through that myself, and I only discovered within the last year and a half with my own mental health journey and own addiction recovery that, a lot of stuff for me stemmed from some unresolved grief. But I don't know with Bam if he's ever going to be to the point that he's going to be able to do what he needs to do to grieve Ryan. It, Ryan was so much a part of his life in every way, and I don't think he'd ever like he hasn't worked. Like think of that. Like he really hasn't worked since Ryan died. And that's sad because he was actually like I don't know if people in the chat know this, but Bam was a fantastic independent filmmaker. He did several movies, including I want to say it's a documentary, but maybe it's a dramatization of Brandon Novak's life called Dream Seller, and the other one is called Haggard. Those are the two I remember watching, and I have Haggard somewhere. But like he was doing film. He was, there was purpose in his life. He was always working, and I think when Bam was working more, he was drinking less. And then I hate to say this too because like I love Villavallo and I love him. They're my favorite band in the entire world. Like I'm not even in the little bit exaggerating that. Um Villa had a severe alcohol problem. And about the time that Bam started developing his real bad alcohol problem was about the time that he started spending a lot of time with Villa. And I am not at all saying, like, I'm just trying to piece together the pieces here. Like, because that's what this has been for me. It's kind of like this puzzle I'm trying to figure out. Like, I don't want to say where it went wrong, but where did it go wrong? Where did Bam go wrong? Where did things fall apart? Because if you would have told me when I was yeah, he's done so many CKY ones. There's the documentary about the making of CKY and like the history of CKY. He filmed a bunch of music videos, like really, really good music videos. Buried Alive by Love by him was one of the ones that he did, and it's just like it's not fancy or anything, but it's just a good music video. Bam is so talented, and I think that's the other thing about this. He's so talented, and to see this amazingly talented, I don't want to call him young man because he's older than me, but this amazingly talented person basically crumble before your eyes, it's heartbreaking. That does not go together. And I think the biggest sign to me that Bam is in real crisis was the fact that he made threats to Phil. Until I read that today, I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe it's exaggerated. Maybe this is being exaggerated because stuff with celebrities gets exaggerated all the time. We know that. But I don't think it's exaggerated this time because I think he's really, I don't know if he's having some type of mental breakdown, if the alcoholism has just gotten to the point of no return. And I hate to say that like that, but I remember with my dad's alcoholism, there was a point where my dad just stopped caring. And there was no reasoning with him. But I was struggling with and grieving. I just threw myself into work. I tried to push it down so I didn't have to see it or feel it. Yeah, and I think that was Bam's original plan, but then his work was Ryan. It's just, and when I lost my mom, I threw myself into my kid. Like, I threw every little bit of effort and everything I had into him. And so I get that. And until I started to deal with it, 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 it didn't help me at all the time I spent with my son, all the love, because I you look at pictures of Bam with his gorgeous little boy, and you can tell how, the love he has for his son, and I think his son is a huge motivator and why he keeps going back and trying to get clean and trying and trying and trying. It's not like the dude doesn't try. He's just he's gotten put through the ringer of the mental health system in America. That's the unfortunate truth because they don't often get to the root cause of why the behaviors and things like that are occurring. A lot of times they'll just throw medication at you, and that's what they did when Bam was doing Jackasses. He was on like a huge amount of medication, which even just a small amount of medication like that can make you feel like crap. And I looked at like the supposed list of medications he claims they had him on, and if they even had him on half of the ones that he claims that he was on, I mean, how he even was able to function, I have no idea. And and what he says about like basically just getting out of bed and eating and going back to sleep. And then COVID happened and that delayed filming for so long. And so with the delayed filming, he had to just keep on this like very strict regime of medication and which if he did actually take it, good for him. I so many people have so many bad opinions of Bam, and some of them are very valid, but I also feel some of them are very misplaced because people don't understand addiction or people have preconceived notions of what addiction is and what addiction stems from. And one big thing I always bring back is if you look at Bam, look at where he was prior to where Ryan died. He was still in the throes of addiction. And he was in the throes of addiction with Ryan, who was also in the throes of addiction. And he lost his friend to his friend's addiction, which, hmm. And now he's basically losing himself, and it's just as a fan of his, it's just heartbreaking because like who would have thought if you would have said 20 years ago when Jackass was at its peak, who would have thought that Steve-O would be the one that's clean and sober, a sober advocate, speaks to people all the time about sobriety and the importance of sobriety and, maintaining the sober lifestyle and all of these things. And Bam is the one that's completely off the rails. Like, that just feels like some sort of farce to me. Like it's not real. Like there's no way that this is reality because it didn't seem like Steve-O would ever get clean, and I don't want to like discount Steve-O at all because like yeah, I expected him to pass before Ryan if you want the truth of it. Like I did not expect him to live very long, but he's doing great things and I am so happy for him. It's beautiful. He has this really great life now, and I couldn't be happier for him because he deserves that. Everybody deserves a chance for that. I just never would have expected that Bam wouldn't also be there. That Bam wouldn't also be doing well because when he was doing Jackass, he was, for the most part, I don't want to say he was like perfectly clean and sober, but he was a functioning alcoholic. And I hate to use that, because it is such just like a cringe term for me. But he was able to function. He could work, he could do his job, he could do any number of other things and function. But now the dude can't. I watched that interview with BJ Investigates, guys, and it was hard. It was so hard to watch because do I feel like she also was exploiting the situation with Bam? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I absolutely feel that she's in her own way part of the exploitation of Bam. She she doesn't have monetization off on the video. She's gonna make money off of it, and she's the one who has the last interview with Bam Margera before his disappearance, where he's has an arrest warrant. Yeah, recovery is one, recovery is unique to every person. Recovery is evolving because your needs evolve. I read My Bookie Wook by Russell Brand. And like I'm not a huge Russell, like massive Russell Brand fan, but the book he wrote about his struggle with addiction is what pushed me to end up going into recovery and seeking help myself because I resonated with that because I jumped from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing and I still kind of jump from thing to thing, you know, whether it's caffeine or nicotine or gaming or trying to grow my YouTube channel, I always got to have something. I always got to have some. What, I forget who it was that calls it this, but copium. Like, I got to have something to help me cope. And it's kind of sad that it's that way, but it's also for me it's life. Yeah, Russell, like he's got some interesting viewpoints. I like his old stand up and he was really funny in oh, not something funny happened on the way to the forum, but it was like the one with Jonah Hill and he was a rock star, and then Forgetting Sarah Marshall he was really funny in. But I watch a lot of Russell's podcasts now, and he's got interesting viewpoints, and I think his kind of holistic way of looking at finding the root of your addiction and trying to understand why you started using in the first place and being like, I had a problem with opioids. I'll be completely honest about that. And for me, going in and going through a treatment program where they give you like an opioid blocker or something that's a set amount was never going to work for me because I would get addicted to that. And so I had to go and with the help of my mom and like research and books and online because thank goodness I grew up in the internet age, I was able to find a path that worked for me and I've been clean for 13 years and it's not easy. Every day is a struggle, of course. And I have good days, I have bad days. And I think like the fact that Russell talked about that in his book and acknowledged that you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. You might fail, you might relapse. You're human. And I think a lot of the expectations on Bam, particularly by that Jackass contract, which I've read some of it didn't take into account the fact that the man was human. He lives right on the border of Delaware. And Delaware doesn't have sales tax. PA has some pretty rank sales tax, if I'm honest. And so he liked to go grocery shopping over the border. He couldn't do that. And like that's what the contract says. That's also what Bam says, and that's actually like he's been proven by what he said in some of that interview is true. Some of it's bullshit, some of it's true. Which I think that's the hard thing. I think he's not somebody who lies on purpose. And I've never gotten the impression that Bam is somebody who lies on purpose. Like like a Cyrax. Or or even I think he's more like Cobes, and in the sense like he really has it's he's got good intentions, but he just doesn't know how to deal with it. And I think a lot of the trauma and like losing Ryan and not dealing with losing Ryan, I feel like I'm repeating a record here, but it's it so comes back to that. And I feel like the treatment has been so addiction focused. And when I've watched the episodes with Dr. Phil, and I've watched, you know, episodes of the family therapy, I think it was like family therapy or whatever, they never really, like, they would briefly touch on it, and they would be like, well, you have to learn to grieve and rah, rah, rah. Like, were they giving him the tools to grieve? Were they having him get involved in a grief group, perhaps? Did they do anything actively to help the man in the grieving process? I don't know. I don't think so. Again, my opinion. Don't know that for fact. Everything I've said is my opinion, but I don't want to say like he's not getting the help he needs, but I just don't think that they've taken into account what he needs help wise. Like they know what they would like him to do, but have they looked at what he needs? Not what they would like to happen, what he needs to happen. And I don't think that they have. I would like to like I really wonder if the family has had conversations with addicts in recovery. I wonder if the family has had conversations with addicts in recovery who also deal with mental health issues. No, absolutely not. You're never going to get quality treatment on a TV show. You're never going to. Dr. Phil isn't even a licensed practicing therapist anymore. Like, why he wanted to go on Dr. Phil, and I think him going on Dr. Phil was the stupidest damn thing he could have ever done in his entire life. It, I don't want to say like it kept him relevant for a second, but it kept his name in people's mouths for a hot second, but long enough only to have their opinion of him worsen, especially among people in my age group, because like we grew up and Bam and Jackass were everywhere. Viva La Bam was on TV after school, and then Jackass reruns, and you know, we had, the Bam shoes and the Heartgram skateboard and like the Element t-shirts and like, and now to see him like this, and I think for a lot of us in my generation in particular, where I grew up, a lot of us lost our friends to addiction too. And to see us losing somebody that we grew up, I don't want to say idolizing, but looking up to, it's so sad. I don't even think it was for his career. I think it was for his family trying to pad out his bank account. Because I think that money, that cash flow has not been going because they had Castle Bam up on Airbnb for a hot second. Because I looked at that. When I heard Castle Bam was up on Airbnb, I looked at how much it would be to go spend a couple nights at Castle Bam, and it was way more than I could afford at the time. It was definitely not like Molly's under $100 a night rooms. And the other thing is like Bam is very generous with his family and with his friends. Like he has he bought his parents the house. Yeah, it's a cash grab for his family, and I hate to say this, but it motivated, I would say, 99% of it by April because she got accustomed to the lifestyle that Bam was able to afford for her because they were not a wealthy family beforehand. They were very working class. April was a hairdresser, and Phil worked, I believe, as a baker at a grocery store chain. They weren't people who were well off. They were, salt of the earth people. And you go from that to like money, owning a dang castle basically, and multiple houses and Lamborghinis and all of that. Like Bam bought his family cars and afforded his brother to have a music career. Do you think CKY would have gotten any of their music out at all past outside of the greater Westchester area if it wasn't for Bam? No. No. They're a good band, but I guarantee you almost everybody who knows CKY knows of them because Jess is Bam's brother. And that's not me trying to be mean, that's just me stating some facts. And like people might get mad at me for comparing Bam's downward trajectory to Cobb's, but him and I adore Cobb's in his own way. Like he needs help the same way Bam needs help. They both need help. And they both need the same kind of help. And I don't think either of them are diametrically bad people. I think they've made some real dumb mistakes in their life, and I think they've been enabled by the people around them to a point that they've been allowed to do it. And if you have the wrong people around you pulling the strings, I mean, geez, look at Chris Chan. Like, look at Chris Chan. That's all I have to say on that one. And maybe it's because like I started rewatching the comprehensive history of Chris Chan last night. But there's a lot of elements of like a orchestrated PR situation with celebrities and like the trolling. There is. It it's probably not going to win me any favors, but it's like it's true. It's so close to like what they do with like telling you what to think and what you can do and what you can't do and who you can speak to and who you can't speak to, and it's just it's sad. The whole situation is just absolutely heartbreaking. And again, so much more so because he has a son, a very young little dude too. And this has cost him his relationship, and I believe the woman he's with now, this Jess chick, also has a child, so there's children involved in this. And as a parent, it's just like I as a parent and an addict in recovery, like can't imagine ever having a kid while I was inactive. Like I couldn't. There's no way I could manage it. And at first, I kind of felt a little pissed off towards Bam's estranged wife because she dipped on him. But when I really started to think about it, I'd probably dip on him too. She was thinking of her kid, and with his erratic behavior being what it is lately, because I don't know if I mentioned, I don't think I did, but about 3 weeks ago, Bam was out in California, um, and he got into an altercation, a screaming match with his estranged wife in front of their son. Like, WTF, Bam? I thought you loved this little boy more than life, and that's not proving you love your kid, by doing those things in front of, screaming at his mother in front of him and stuff. That's not showing your son how to treat a woman. That's not showing your son that you respect his mother. And whether or not you like her, I do believe that in whatever co-parenting situation, you need to have mutual respect between the parents. So, completely off topic and random, and I knew this was going to happen, but I had to show this. So, if anybody remembers the old Sims game, do you remember this plant? Because I just got like the basement treasures pack, and it's Uncle Bob's dusty rubber plant, and it's from The Sims 1. It just makes me happy. And that's kind of why I'm playing The Sims right now and talking about this, because Sims makes me happy, and talking about this is, I want to talk about it, and I think it's very, very important to talk about. And I do think that addiction is something that people don't talk about enough in a very frank and matter of fact way, and with compassion, even if it's really stinking hard for me to get through it a little bit. So I appreciate you guys sticking it out with me, because I'm sure it's all rambly, and I'm sure I sound like a absolute cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but this whole thing with Bam has been really, it's it's been an emotional one, and then everything else that's been going on in like the greater true crime community that we've been involved in, and all of that, and watching people like Betty and JLR and them. It's a lot on the old noodle and on the mentals, and don't worry, I am taking care of myself, and I'm taking a break. But you can't really take breaks for too long, because in the end you can miss some like really, really important stuff. But sometimes you just gotta sit around and play The Sims, though, and talk about Bam, reminisce about the good old days of Jackass, because that's what I miss. Like, I would have loved to see him in Jackass Forever. I was so excited when I heard originally that Bam was going to be in Jackass Forever, and I haven't even seen it since. Like, I haven't even seen the movie. I own every other Jackass movie. I own all the CKYs. Like, pretty. We have more stains. That's amazing. I love a good stain in The Sims. I don't know why you guys are gonna get some real insider information about my Sims decorating right now. But, like, back in the day, that's like, Jackass was the best back in the day. And it was like such like a, for me, it was like a happy place. When things were really difficult at home for whatever reason, or things were going on in my family, and tragedies and whatnot were going on around me and my family, I turned to that show to make me laugh when nothing else would make me laugh. And it just kind of, it's heartbreaking on a different level. Like, I've seen people I respect and like actors and stuff pass away, and Heath Ledger is a prime example of that. Like, it devastated me, because he was so talented and so just a gifted actor, and to see his life be taken away by addiction was heartbreaking. And I'm worried that Bam's headed down that same path, and I don't want that. Like, that's the last, I don't want that for Bam. Bam is such, like, I don't know, I'm probably sounding like a crazy person right now. But it just makes me really just sad that all this is going on with Bam. Because he's just, he was such a huge part of my childhood and growing up, and so many times when nothing else would make me laugh, like Bam made me laugh. And I don't know the dude, and it's not like I can do anything to help him, but I wish they would just find out where he is and get him someplace safe. And that's honestly right now my only wish for Bam is that he's found. I don't want him arrested. Like I never want anybody arrested. I don't think that jail is where Bam needs to be right now. But I also don't think that he's safe wherever he is. And at the end of the day, if we're fans of Bam, we should just all want him safe and sound and healthy. And I think the people who are part of the Free Bam movement, they want Bam to be Bam that he was, and they enjoy that. I think some of them enjoy the drama, and they don't realize that if he doesn't get help, he's not going to be around much longer. He's not young anymore. He's in his 40s. He's not a young man anymore. How much longer do you think dude's liver can handle it? Like, for real, for real. Oh, that's cool. It's like how, like, dude can't, there's like no freaking way dude can keep going the way he has been. There's none. That's cool. But, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess there's nothing I can do, and there's nothing we can do. All we can do is the same thing that, like, it's kind of the same situation when you're watching these true crime stories and you're watching people interact with families in other ways than you personally would. Trying to choose my words very carefully here. Um, you feel for them, and you feel for the family, and you feel for everybody involved, except for the jerk faces that are being jerk faces. And it's kind of that same situation. Like, I feel for Bam, I feel for his son, I kind of even feel for April, even though I do think that she's part of the reason that he's having issues that he's having. But most of all, like, I really feel for Bam, and he's he needs help. Like, it's I just hope and I hope and I hope Bam will get the help. And if by some frickin' chance, Bam, you hear this, bro, just please, for the love of everything, go get some help, buddy. And you've got a whole bunch of fans and stuff out there that really do genuinely care about you and want to see you succeed and see you thrive and start creating again. I would love to see him get back into filmmaking and even his crazy music. I'd love to see him do anything at this point that's productive. And I just hope, really hope that they find him in the next day or so because the weather and the area that he's in is is dangerous. It's really dangerous. And if he stays out there too long, like, the woods are treacherous, y'all. Like, I watch a lot of true crime, like just like documentaries and stuff off YouTube, and one of the ones that series that I watched not that long ago was about people who just got lost in the woods and went missing in the woods, and it's wild. And he's just, the last place they saw him was walking into the woods. So Lord even knows where he is, where he could be, if he's okay. I hope he's okay. And I think that's why so many people are genuinely concerned, like myself, and obviously like you guys, because y'all are here listening to me ramble. You know, we care about Bam and we want to see him back and we want to see him well and healthy and getting treatment. And this not knowing where he is just, I can't even imagine for his family. It has to be so difficult. And I can't even imagine like what, I don't know how you would tell his son what's going on. Like, would you even tell, like that's just got to be a lot for the family. And I can't even begin to try and wrap my head around it. But I'm going to wrap this up actually. And I appreciate everyone who's like stuck around for the last hour and listened to me ramble. It means a lot, especially because this is like my first live stream and I'm going to try and do some more. I don't know if I'll always be doing some stuff or not. I do build a lot in The Sims. It's what I do. But yeah, I will probably finish this up and, I don't know, throw a video of the interior of it done when it's done up on the channel, just for people who might be interested in how it turns out. My little boho witchy vet place for my boho witchy sim that's basically sim me. So anywho, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the evening. I appreciate every single one of you who stuck around. And if you are a praying person or a good vibes person or whatever, just send some positive energy towards the Margera family and BAM right now, because they really need it and they're going through it. And especially as people who can relate to being in recovery and the difficult journey at times entering recovery can be, um, we definitely can all sympathize. And my earbud fell out, so I'm definitely done now, anyways, guys. I hope you guys are having, take care, stay safe, all of that corny stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, share, yada, yada, yada. I'm just gonna go now. Everybody needs to just stop.